It's
right?
such a, I say this in the greatest of compliments because I think mathematically, it's such a mathematically sound viewpoint and like approach to it. It begs the question though, and this is the question I was going to ask you before. If you think about it, real deeply philosophically, is there a burden to it? Is there a shadow side to it where if you net it out on the grand scheme of life, and I'm not suggesting it is, I'm genuinely wondering this because I wonder it for myself.
Yeah.
Is it the optimal life you personally could be living? Right? Are you sacrificing some of your joy, happiness by holding yourself to this standard that it nets out to where your life isn't as good as it could have been? And that's a tough question to answer honestly in the spirit of what we're talking about. But you'll hear people who have that viewpoint, which is just let it go. Don't allow yourself to get worked up about things like that. And that's the path to the happiest life. How do you think about that?
Oh, I think it's definitely true. I definitely know that I dwell on things way more than I should. Like I said, that's the thing that I should really honestly need to let go.
Mm,
But it's the thing that sits in the back of my mind. And I
mm,
think again that comes back to that integrity piece. If I really wanted to hold myself to integrity, I would just make the commitment to let things go. And that would be a thing that I could hold
okay.
myself to.
Interesting.
Um, and be honest to my word. It's just I happen to know that I would be lying to myself if I said I could do it.
How do you, I appreciate the complexity yet profoundness of that statement. How do you work through that though? Like who's right? Which version of you is right in that?
Both are, and that's the beautiful thing. I don't think in this case it's a right or wrong. I don't think it's a binary. I think the way that I work through it is again understanding that all I'm required to do is to do my best in each given day, moment, hour, and that I recognize that my best changes based on internal and external influence.
Mm,
If I want to truly get better at some of these things, I've just self-admittedly pointed out that a 48-hour marathon work session for me is
sure.
a regular occurrence. If I really truly, if starts to become an issue, I need to start limiting that or eliminating that completely.
Mm,
Um, and being true to my word there. I'm sorry, I'm committed to this, or blocking off sleep more, which I have started to do, but don't do often because I go again, that's that integrity piece
yeah, yeah.
and that eroding of honesty where I go, do I need 8 hours? No, technically I only need 6 hours and 20 minutes based on the biorhythms that I've
Mm, mm.
that I've done. So although I'm blocking off these eight, I can eat into that. And that's an erosion of my integrity. That's an erosion of my honesty. And
Is there
so
a tell in that, Tyler? So
what's that?
is there a tell for you where you can tell where it becomes an issue? Because it's tough, right? It can be tough to say, am I being, honest to myself here? What would it look like if you felt like, all right, that's a clear instance where I know, I'm not being honest. Therefore, I'm going to change it instantly because I know that's wrong. I'm going to fix it right away.
Well, so again, it's they call them a hierarchy of values for a reason. You have a thing that overrides another thing,
Hmm.
right? It becomes this base programming with you where you say, I'm going to do this thing, and then there's an if then else statement,
Hmm.
if you want to
Hmm.
talk about
Hmm.
mathematically, right?
Yep.
I'm going to do this if then or this overrides. And again, for me, that integrity piece where I'm going to commit to this, some of my other values, I have committed to my wife to live with her for the rest of our lives, which means that that becomes the priority because that is infinite now for me. Again, I have created a human being and brought her into this world. So she is my family now, and it is incumbent on me to ensure that I am doing everything in my power to make sure that she doesn't suffer needlessly. I don't need to give my child everything. She needs to learn things on her own, but I need to make sure that her growth environment is optimal.
Mm,
And some of those come down to, do we have the right resources in
mhm.
place? And oftentimes, the biggest resource that I need to make that happen is money.
Mm,
So, currently, right now, especially in my business, I overcommitted over the last 22 to 24 months. For the first 5 years my business was open, I ran a cash business. I didn't even have a credit card for the business, which, by the way, makes travel super hard. Uh, I always felt like one of those internet print scammers where I would have to, like, people who would be booking me to come speak, I'd be if they didn't pay for travel and I had to pay for travel myself, I would literally have to be the, "I'm gonna send you the money and then you book it," right? And, if I send you a little bit too much, whatever, tell me how
yeah.
much do you think it is? Don't worry, but I was never the and then you reimburse me. No, 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 just I will send you the money. And it was always super odd for them, and they're like, "Well, how do you do it?" But then, you know, in February of 2020, I had over $150,000 in contracts signed and ready for 2020. We negotiated all of the things in January, had all the contracts signed in February. March came and 90% of those contracts dissolved.
Mm,
And the same thing happened in 2015, and I wasn't prepared for it. And my wife and I lost our house. In 2020, I had built up a very nice war chest, and I promised myself I would not have that happen again.